2017-2018, class number 9. Okay, so welcome everybody. The week of Thanksgiving, you all come to class. You get a double extra credit for that. And so just make sure you celebrate Thanksgiving. And so somebody said to me, Rabbi, do I celebrate Thanksgiving? I said, well, how do you fulfill your obligation of celebrating Thanksgiving? I said, right. I said, in Judaism, there's the structure. You got to do this. You make a blessing over here. I said, Thanksgiving. I said, I give Thanksgiving to God every day. Right? And 3 times a day, right? Every time I make a blessing, we're thanking God. Right? So now, I said, what's Thanksgiving? So he goes, well, you watch the Cowboy game and you eat turkey. So that's how you fulfill your obligation of Thanksgiving. So I said, well, to tell you the truth, I'm happy to watch the Cowboy game. I said, but to tell you the truth, I'm a barbecue guy, not a turkey guy. I don't know who got everyone thinking you got to eat a turkey in order to celebrate Thanksgiving. I like barbecue. So I said, if I watch the Cowboy game and I eat barbecue, have I fulfilled my obligation of celebrating Thanksgiving?
No, obviously not.
Yeah, so okay. Alrighty, so Thanksgiving is always a lot to be thankful for and to be grateful to God for all the good that He does. It's something you should practice every day, actually. And it's actually the first thing a Jew wakes up in the morning. Right, the first prayer a Jew says is Modani. Thank you, God, for waking me up. Right, for giving me another day. So, being thankful is something that we're always very pro. And make sure your Thanksgiving to God. Okay, so last week we ended off on the end of day number 6. So page number 9. Yes. Page number 9, we talked about how God, and every day, when he completed everything, it says, and God saw that it was good. And then on day number 6, right, when he completed the entire world, when it says, and God saw that it was very good, right? Not just good, it was very good. He said, what does it mean it was very good?
Because man was made.
No, not man.
The
evil inclination, right? The very good means very good evil inclination. You say, what of all things to be thankful for is very good is the evil inclination? Why is that something that's so amazing?
So we have free choice.
The answer is have free will. Free will. I don't like using the word free choice because there's a lot of choices that we make. Whether you have chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream is a choice, right? As opposed to, but that's not where, when we say God created man with free will, what that means when it comes to the idea of making free will decisions, those ideas that have morality attached to it. Okay, right? So it's not really I'm going to have chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, right? Unless one is kosher, one's not, right? Then it comes into a choice, right? Then there's a moral piece to it. But let's say you're standing in front of a soft serve ice cream, both kosher, right? Chocolate and vanilla, and you're sitting there, which one should I have? We don't call that free will, right? That's choice. That's I'll colloquially call it. You're making a choice. Choices are not a problem. Right? What it's all about is making free will decisions, right? Okay? Going ahead and making a moral decision. That in that moral decision, the only way to have that struggle is to have an evil inclination that tells you not to do it, right? So, if you're making a choice, and I tell you something fascinating, right? The book, Mesilas Yesharim, The Path of the Just, has something that it says a truly amazing thing. He says, if you have a choice to make, right, a moral decision, and you pick the easier choice, or the choice that you really want to do, he says, stop and think about it again. He says, because make sure you're not fooling yourself into taking the easier choice, because that's the choice that you want. And so making free will decisions is a serious business, because that's really what makes us human. Right? Making the right decision, right? Going ahead and making the right decision. What are we going to do? We're going to study, we're not going to study. Right? Or business 1,000,000 times a day. How honest do I need to be? Right? Or right? It cuts through everything we do. But we have to paint it in the color of what is the moral thing to do. Right? Okay, what's the moral thing for us to do? And that's what I want to know. Right? What am I supposed to do? Right? What's the right thing to do? Right? And that's really how we look at the world. It's a moral decision. Am I doing the right thing, right? i.e. the godly thing, or am I not doing the godly thing, right? I'm just doing what I want to do rather than what the right thing to do is. Okay? And that's sort of how that kind of breaks down. Okay? That really is the decisions that we make. So we go ahead and we say, God said in the world was very good. Yeah, day number 6, it has to be very good because that's what makes man man. And if there was no evil inclination, there would never be such a decision. So therefore God says it was very good, means he created the evil inclination. And then our job is to struggle with that evil inclination. And it's something very important. The job is to struggle. Okay? Is to fight. Okay? Is to not let the evil inclination go ahead and conquer us. If we give it a good fight and we fail, but we fought it, and we did our best, even though, quote unquote, we might fail, right? Because we maybe not strong enough to beat it, right? But at least we go ahead and we're doing, right, what God wants us to do, right? Which is to struggle with it. And then that's really what it boils down to, is really looking at things and making sure I'm making a moral decision. And whenever we have a dilemma, what to make, okay, what right, we have a choice. Always try to paint it in an idea of being what is the right decision, what is the morally correct thing to do. Right? Then the way I always think about it is think about it if somebody was asking you what they should do. Right? Because as long as it's dealing with you, right, we are all very, very jaded and colored when it comes to our own self. And it's very hard for us to see. Right. So the easy thing to say, well, what would if so and so comes over to us and asks us a question, what should you do? I remember a bunch of years ago I was having a challenge with one of my children, and I wasn't sure what to do. Then somebody comes and says, Rabbi, can I come and speak with you? So I said, sure. He says, I need to ask you a question. So I said, sure. And he asked me a question, and I said, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to do A, B, C, D. So he goes. It's so funny. He goes to me. He says. I said, it's clear, you have to do B. That's the right decision. The person leaves, and then I say, holy smokes. I said, this is exactly my question. Right? And I told him the answer clearly is B. I said, so why aren't I doing B? Right? And then I started to think of why all those things don't apply to me. What I told him. And then I said, look how blind I am, right? Something that is clear, right? And yet when it comes to my own kid, right? Because it had to do with me, I didn't have the clarity, right? Everything became very, 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 right? Very unclear, right? And that's really our job. Our job is to learn how to get the clarity, right? Right? Our job is to learn how to make the right decisions, right? That's what life is all about. And making the right moral decisions. Right? And the good news is, even if you didn't start off that way, you can always just stop and start making the right decisions from now. Right? You could just say, okay, from now on, right, it's 7:56 on Tuesday, on Monday night, right, November 21st?
20.
November 20th. From here on out, I'm going to try to make the right moral decisions, or at least put it into the form of making the right moral decision.
I don't know how to correctly answer this question. If I was Catholic, God forbid, I could be absolved from all wrong decisions. As a Jew, how do I get rid of those wrong decisions?
Okay, so there's something called tshuva.
Yes.
Okay, tshuva, which is colloquially translated as repentance. Now again, that is incorrect, right? Right? What is the real word of teshuvah? The word teshuvah comes from the idea of shav, to return. What happens if you can imagine, here's God, okay? When a person ignores God, right, we call sinning, right? He's walking away from God, right? He's walking away from God. When a person says, you know what, I made a mistake, I need to head back towards God, he's returned. He's done tshuva. So even when you're over here, and you're not all the way back here, but even over here, you've already have started to do teshuvah, right? You already have started to return. It's called teshuvah gemura. Complete teshuvah is when you get back to right here. But teshuvah is already when a person says, okay, from now on, I am now coming back towards God, right? I've turned around, even by just turning around and saying, okay, God, I'm in. That already is tshuva. Now, when it comes to doing tshuva, I'm going to tell you now the greatest secret in the entire world. Pay me later, but the greatest secret in the entire world. Okay? There are two reasons to do teshuvah. One is out of fear. You wake up one day, you said God's the boss, right? And if I don't listen to him, I might get hit by a lightning bolt. Or Rabbi Epstein might smack me on the head. I'm back. Okay, right? That's called teshuvah out of fear. When you do teshuvah out of fear, and you come back to God because you're afraid, even just coming back, okay? Even just coming back, teshuvah works, you wipe it out. Your sin is gone. Okay? Good. Good news? Good news. There's a higher level of teshuvah called doing teshuvah out of love. Is when you go and you say, oh my gosh, I've ignored my relationship with God, and I love God. And I want a relationship with God. I don't want to live my life in a godless oasis. And your love for, and you realize that all these things that you have done that have kind of pulled you away, right, have caused you to create a distance between you and God. And you say, I don't want that distance. I want to be back together with God. That's called doing teshuvah out of love. Somebody who does teshuvah out of love, their sins not only go away, your sins actually turn into merits. Right? So a person says, well, gosh, Rabbi, I've gone through my life and I've got, 60 years of dreck. It's a lot of manure, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of junk to be carrying around. But then you go ahead and you say, but you know what, God? I realize I haven't created a relationship with you. I've let this distance, and I don't want that. I want to create that closeness. At that point in time, all those 60 years, instead of just melting away, they get changed into bars of gold. Right? And that's really doing teshuvah out of love of God.
Can you give me an example?
out of an example of making teshuvah out of love is that you go and you said, okay, God, let's take Shabbat for example, okay? So, I'm busy. Shabbat's a busy day. I'm saying a lot of things you got to do. I got to go shopping. I got to go mow my lawn. Very important things I have on my list to do, right? And someone said to me, he says, Rabbi, he says, I have my honey-do list, and I have the whole weekend to do it. I have Shabbos and I have Sunday, and I can't fit it all into 2 days. How do you expect me to fit it into 1 day? So I said, trust me, try it. So I said, okay. He tried it. And 6 months later, he comes back to me and said, "No, how's it going?" He says, "Oh, great." I said, "Well, how's your honey-do list?" He says, "Rabbi, I don't know how, but somehow I'm doing it in 1 day. Somehow I'm able to do it all on Sunday." Right? So what happens? So you go, you do that, right? You go, you're busy doing all your little stuff that you're doing. And then at one point in time, you wake up and you say, you know what? God gave me a present, and I want that relationship with God. Right? And I feel I'm distant from God, and that's not what I want. Right? So then at that point in time, you say, I want to repair that relationship. Right? And it's really RSVP. Okay? Just do the 4 steps of tshuva. RSVP. R is regret. What you're doing.
Stop.
S is stop. Right? V, verbalize it. Right? Verbalize it to God. And then P is to pray or to say to God, you're not going to do it again. Right? But that's what they do, the confession. And then P is when you get to the place of where you sinned last time, this time you don't do it. Right? The same place, right, with the same desires, and you still don't do it. Right? You had that big project you had the whole weekend, and now you got the same desire, you want to do it, and bang, and you still don't do it. Right? And that's and when you do that 4th step, that's when you come to what we call teshuva gemura, complete shuva. But if the piece that is motivating you is because I love you, Hashem, and I want a relationship with you, right? So then at that point in time, that's called doing it out of love. Oh. See, God doesn't want us to serve Him because we have to. God wants us to serve Him because we want to. Right? Again, you want your children to love you because they have to or because they want to. I don't care, Rabbi, just whichever way they'll make it. Right? Right. I just want to, Right? But the answer, right? The answer we want them to do it out of love. We want them to do it because that's what they want to do, not because they have to do it. Right? And so that's really doing tshuva out of love. That's really getting to the point of serving God out of love, right? Not out of fear.
What if you're afraid of losing the relationship? Let's say you I mean, basically I do tshuva every day for almost everything. But let's say you do it because you're afraid of losing the relationship, not of.
Okay. So let me show you. Have any of you heard of the Hebrew word Yiras Hashem?
Yes, Yiras Hashem.
Right, what does Yiras Hashem mean?
Fear.
Yiras Hashem means fear of God. Okay. So what's greater, fear of God or love of God?
Aren't they the same thing?
Love.
Love.
Yes.
Yiras Hashem, right? Then comes love of God. There's one level higher than love of God.
Trust.
Awe of God.
Okay.
Okay? Getting to a place where you recognize that if your relationship would disappear, the entire world would go up in smoke with it. Okay?
That's fear.
And how do you say that in Hebrew? That's Yiras Hashem. The same Yiras Hashem down here, which is just a plain old fear. God's strong, He's in charge, He'll hit me with the lightning bolt, is the same one that Yiras is called Yiras Haromumus, the fear of the awesomeness of God. And to say that I can't bear to live a second without my relationship with God. Right? That's called Yiras Hashem. That's real awe of God.
Is that love of God?
No, there's love.
Yeah.
And then there's this awe of God. Being in that place that God, if you, meaning, you know, I told this guy today to give me a hard time. I said, if you would lose the relationship with God, who would be the loser? You,
Not God.
right, or God?
You would person.
Right, the person, right, the person, right. And as I was saying, right, so if Dada, I said to him, if Dada was to disappear, God forbid, right? I said, who would be the loser, Dada or you? Right? I said, it's you. I said, so I'm doing this to you, and you're giving me grief, right? But that's what it is. But that's his Yiras Hashem. That's this awe of God, right? There's the fear of God, love of God, and then there's the awe of God. It means that I want this relationship. I realize that this relationship with God is so central. Right, and so all encompassing of what I want in life. Right, that when I get to that level, we've reached the pristine level. Right, we've reached the rarefied atmosphere of truly living a godly life with a connection to God.
But all three are fear. They're all rooted in fear.
No. It seems like this. It's very interesting. When a child turns 13. Right? A boy turns 13, a girl turns 12. Right? What happens at that point in time? They become responsible in the commandments. And let me ask you a question. Do they understand anything about love? No. What do they understand? So why are they responsible? There's no way for them to come to love God.
It's fear.
It's fear. Right? Because at least they can understand at that point in time, if I don't listen to God, okay, like, you know, bad things could happen, right? God's in charge. You know what the problem with us is? We never outgrow that, right? And we sit here in our lives.
There could be mixed motives.
Yeah, right.
Days or
No, for sure. For sure, when you get older, for sure, there's mixed. Absolutely, there's different levels. Yeah.
I never heard you use the term fear of God.
Right,
I don't feel that way.
Excellent.
That's not why I'm here.
Right. Because you're love of God.
Yes, and I want to learn Torah.
Right.
But it's not because I'm.
Right, no, which is good, right? That's why I try not to talk about being in fear of God, because fear of God, right, is getting to a place. It's a child, right? It's a childish look at Judaism. And God is not here because He's going to beat you on the head, right? You know, God is here because He loves us, and He created this entire world, because He loves us. You know, if you actually ever stop and think about it, it's one of the most remarkable things that's out there. It's one of the crazy. I'll give you a classic example. Saturday night, I had a friend over. So I said, okay, no, we're going to make a special, Saturday night you're supposed to eat a special meal.
The third meal.
The fourth meal. It's called Melava Malka.
The fourth meal.
Yeah, after Shabbat.
After three when I came.
The 3 on Shabbat. Okay, so it's Friday night, Shabbos morning, and then Shabbos afternoon, mincha time.
Okay.
And then there's the fourth one after the Shabbat goes. It's called Melava Malka. Okay, accompanying the queen. Very important meal to eat because there's one bone in your entire body that gets nourishment once a week. Okay, it's called the luz bone. L-U-Z. The luz bone, somewhere in the back of your neck. Okay, and this luz bone is very important because at the revival of the dead, God rebuilds you from that luz bone. Okay, very important bone.
All the DNA is there.
Okay, right? It's okay, you got a very important bone, this luz bone. The one time a week, the luz bone gets nourished is on Saturday night, this meal called Melava Malka.
And what does that mean in English?
Melava means to accompany, Malka means the queen. Right, as the Shabbat queen leaves, now we accompany the Shabbat queen. Okay, so that's very important bone. And I'll tell you just parenthetically, why is that the bone that we get rebuilt from? Because that bone never will be destroyed. Why? Because it only gets its nourishment on Saturday night. When did Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge? Before Shabbat. They ate on Friday. So every bone in our body had nourishment from the tree of knowledge. So therefore, since every bone in our body has tasted sin, therefore it has to be destroyed. The only bone in our body that had no nourishment at all from the tree of knowledge was the luz bone, because it only gets nourished on Saturday night. And so therefore that's why we'll be rebuilt from that bone. Because that's the bone, that's the only bone that will never be destroyed. Okay? This is luz bone, very important bone. So he was at my house. So I said, come, we're going to make a very special Melava Malka. He says, Rabbi, what does that mean? I said, it means a barbecue. Right, okay, right, okay, we're gonna make a little barbecue. Just in honor of the Shabbat. And it's terrible because you've eaten all Shabbos, like you're really not hungry. But you have to honor the Shabbat queen. Right? So we go ahead, we're gonna honor the Shabbat queen. So we go ahead. Right, and I make this barbecue. Some steak, some ribs, some hot dogs, some tater tots, some grilled kishka. It was good. Lovely spread. We had the hot dogs, so you have to eat a bun, right? You have to have a bun, right? So you got to put the hot dog in the bun, right? Okay, so we had to wash, and the proper way to do it is to wash and have a meal. So I said to him, this steak that we're eating, I said, you know where that steak comes from? He says, yeah, a cow. So I said, okay, good. I said, in order for this cow to grow up to be a steak, because that's why God made cows, right? To be steaks, my Melava Malka. Right? Just know that. Just never forget that. Right? God created the cow so I could have my steak from Melava Malka. Okay? I said, what did God have to do? He said, well, he had to grow grass. I said, okay, now how did God grow grass? Right? So he told me the whole ecosystem. Right? You have grass, you have seeds, you have water, it makes it rain, right? Then the seeds go into the ground, and then it grows grass, and then the cow comes and the cow eats it, right? I said, did you ever stop and think, right, how much things in the world just went into me eating this steak? Did you ever stop and think about that? Right? Did you ever stop and think about all the things that had to go into my steak in order to get it, right? All the supporting. I tell you where it really came to me. He says, the U.S. Army. Do you know how many support staff there is for every soldier fighting in a battle? I think it's 19.
Now?
I think it's like 19. That's what somebody told me again. The answer is it 10 to 1? Is it 19 to 1? Right? The answer is it's a heck of a lot of people supporting one fighter. Right? And you think about it, like it's crazy, right? I mean, you have the goal of the army is the fighter, yet he's making up, 5% of the force? Maybe 10%? And everyone else is in support. I said, so God created a world. Why did he create a world? So I could eat my steak from Melava Malka. Right? You understand what God... He creates a whole pyramid of things just to support Bentzi Epstein steak from Malava Malka. Now, if you eat Malava Malka steak, it could also be your steak. So don't feel bad. You could come join in the program. Okay, but it's in support of that. I said, do you realize how incredible the whole world is? God loves us way beyond anything we can ever imagine. Right? And all God says is make a relationship with me, not because I'm holding a gun to your head. It's because I love you. And there's nothing more in the world than I want is to give you pleasure. Right? I tell people all the time, I say, you see this book? This book is called the Book of Pleasure. If you think you have something that's pleasurable that's not in this book, you're making a mistake. Because either you're taking a small pleasure when there's a much bigger pleasure awaiting you. Right? And so it's an amazing thing. I said, and God did this all for me. Do you know how incredible that is? Have you ever stop and think about that? And then if you just stop and think about that for a minute, who wouldn't love God? Right? Who wouldn't, right? They go nuts. Somebody came to me and says, Rabbi, what would happen if there be no world to come? I said, so what do you mean? He says, would you still do the commandments? I said, but I still love God? I said, the most amazing thing in the world. Most amazing thing. God is so incredible. Right? All you have to do is stop and think about it. Right? And that's what God says. Love God. Get it, folks. Right? I do this because I love you guys. No other reason. Just pure love. Right? God loves you. There's nothing great in the world than the love that God has for you. Right? I mean, just if you really stop and think about that, you'll change your life. Right? Yeah.
So what about when bad things happen like a disease?
Understand. Listen to me carefully. Everything God does for us is for our benefit. I repeat this word. Hakol ma David Rachmana. Everything that God does, letava avid, it's for our benefit. Everything in this world that God does for us is for our benefit. Okay, now let's repeat this. Hakol ma David Rachmana letava avid. That's Aramaic. You just said your first 8 words in Aramaic. Everything that God does in this world is for our benefit. Some things you might not figure out. Some things it might take you years till you figure it out. I'll tell you a story. This story is always one of the craziest stories. The guy in America would open up drugstore after drug, a big drugstore chain.
Yeah.
And he was opening up drugstore after drugstore, fastest growing drugstore chain in America. And one day, he was closing up one of his drugstores, and a stick-up artist came into the store. He said, give me your money or your life. He was a smart man. He gave him the money. But this must have been this stick-up guy was a bit nervous. And he slipped a finger on the trigger.
Oh no.
And shot him. The bullet hit his spine. And he became paralyzed.
Mm.
Terrible? Terrible.
Yeah.
Tragedy.
Tragic.
Right? That's it. Drugstore days were over. Somehow he was a Jewish kid. And he ended up going to Israel. And in Israel I went to the Western Wall. He ends up in Yeshiva Eish HaTorah. Right across from the Wailing Wall, Western Wall. And not doing too much business. Sit and studying. And one day, he goes over to the Rosh Yeshiva, goes to the head of the Yeshiva, Rabbi Weinberg, a blessed memory. And he says to me, I want to make a party. So the rabbi says, what are we celebrating today? He says, today is the day I got shot. And I want to make a party. The rabbi looks at him like the guy's lost his marbles. He says, what are you talking about? He says, let me explain it to you, Rabbi. I always wondered why I had to get shot and become a paraplegic. He says, but I finally figured it out. And I want to show my gratitude to God and make a party. The rabbi said, what did you figure out? He said, I figured out that if the stick-up man hadn't shot me, where would I be today?
Still in the drugstore.
Still in a drugstore. I'd run an empire. I'd be a Fortune 500 company. He said, but I wouldn't learn what Torah is and what God is. He says, Rabbi, I might not have a Fortune 500 company. He says, but I know why I was created. And I know how much God loves me. He says, I want to make a party. Many things happen in our lives. We don't figure out why. I mean, I just had a tragedy. I have a funeral tomorrow. 23-year-old kid. Car accident. Parents came to my house. Tragedy, you just want to cry. Right? It's like that, you know, you cry. And so they said, Rabbi, why? Why? I said, you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't why. The question is, what am I supposed to learn from this? God has a reason. I said, I don't know the reason. I am not God. And I do not know the reason. I said, when something happens to you, there's a message. Don't get caught in the why. The why is the wrong question. Go and ask, what am I supposed to learn from it? Right? What's the message? I said, because the greatest tragedy would not be that the child died.
The child died without you learning the message.
There we go.
What do you say?
The child died. The greatest tragedy would be the child dying without you learning the reason. Right? Because that would be a waste. That would be a waste of a child. Right? Yeah, right? Because there's no reason. Everything that God does is for our benefit. I promise you. Right? I promise you. Hakol mad avid rachmana l'tava of it. Everything that God does for us is for our benefit. We just have to figure out why. Right? That's our job.
Sometimes it's impossible to figure out.
No.
No?
Nope.
I think it's eventually it's
I
possible.
want to let you know, my rabbi, one of my rabbis, before I knew him, he was in Bentzi, and it was one winter day, and he slipped and he broke his leg. And for a week, he wouldn't take any visitors. And after a week, he said, okay, now you can come visit me. So I said, well, what were you doing for the week? He says, I made what's called a cheshbon hanefesh. He said, I took an accounting of my life, trying to understand why this happened to me. He said, I figured it out, so now I can have visitors. But till then, visitors would be a distraction. Right? If we truly and seriously want an answer, and we stop and we really think about it, we'll get the answer. Right? Because God, remember, God, why does God make something happen to us?
Message.
There's a message. So He wants us to get the message. See, the problem is we usually drive looking back through the rearview mirror. Well, let me look back in my life and see all the things that I did wrong and why this happened to me. Right? That's how we think. That's like driving through the rearview mirror. What are we supposed to be driving? We're driving through the front. This happened because going forward, there's a message I need to learn.
I don't know if this is right. When my son and daughter-in-law lost their baby, where the baby was born, and I said, I was so thankful to Hashem for being merciful to them.
Mhm.
Because I thought, what would their life be like if, I mean, you love a child no matter what. And I don't know whether that was the right interpretation. I was thankful in a sense, because I just said, well, that's just incredible.
So it's actually interesting. There was the Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, one of the great sages, read it of when we were younger. He died in 1988, I think, 86, 88. The leading halachic decisive in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady wrote to him, she said, I just had a miscarriage. And he goes, why? She goes, why did I have a miscarriage? And he writes her a letter. A beautiful letter. In it, he basically says, that soul needed to be created in purity and needed to exist in this world for 4 months in order to complete its mission in this world. And he said, and you just helped this soul become complete.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He says you should make a party. He says because you've helped the soul attain its completion. Right? It's a very powerful idea, right? But to understand about it. But that's looking at the world in the right way. Right? When you look at the world in the right way, the world is an incredible place, and everything for our benefit. It's all for our benefit.
Well, I do know that I didn't question it in the sense of why them.
Right. But there's a reason. Yeah.
So we're all here
Mm-hmm.
studying Torah
Mm-hmm.
because we're getting joy from studying Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're all here from the love of Hashem, right? This love of Hashem. This is the beginning of loving Hashem. We're here we enjoy studying Torah.
Right. So some people might be here because the rabbi beat me up and made me come.
No way.
Right?
No.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but it is possible.
Which rabbi?
Right? Which rabbi would that be? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
The other rabbi.
Right? It's the other rabbi. That's right. Right? Some people might be here because it looks good to be here. Right? Look at that. I used to go study Torah and get a little star. I'm a wonderful person. And hopefully we're here for the reason that you said, which is because I love God. I want to learn about God.
We get joy from studying
We
Torah.
get joy from study, right?
When do we get to the next level?
Of what?
The level of awe.
So that takes work.
So I'm not there yet, but I'll get there.
It takes work. There's a famous Jewish work called Mesilas Yesharim. Mesilas Yesharim.
Yes.
Yesharim, a path for the just.
Oh yeah, I'm reading the
Okay,
book. You gave
right?
it to me.
And so it's a wonderful book where it kind of gives you sort of the steps in order to attain this exalted level.
It's hard.
Sure, of course, right? But it takes real work. Right?
I haven't gotten past the diligence.
Due diligence takes a long time.
Yeah.
Right, but it's learning. It's learning how to be. It's working on oneself and becoming and being real. Right, and not faking oneself down, because we have a very hard time being honest with ourselves. Right, it's a hard thing to do. Right, it's a hard thing to do. Right, but learning to be honest is very important. Yeah.
I'm very upset. This weekend I went to see a movie. It was called "Thank You for Your Service," based on true facts.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned 19 protectors of the soldiers when they're over there,
Not support system.
Support system, but there's no support system when they come back. They all had PTSD. I
Right.
walked out in the middle because I figured
She started
this
crying.
this kid was going to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't deal with that. And that's what's really happening. So how, as a Jew who's trying to learn Torah
Right.
and knows stuff like this is happening, what do I do?
Okay, so there's the macro and there's the micro.
The what?
Macro and the micro.
Okay.
Okay, on the macro scale, right? On the macro scale, right, is the more goodness we bring into the world. Okay, right. The more goodness, right. The more goodness, right. The more godliness we bring into the world, right, the more godly the world becomes.
The better chance of these
And the
kids getting help?
yeah.
Because
Yeah,
you
and then
might
there's a
be at
micro-
a store and run into someone, and you may be kinder to them because you've been here studying Torah. Whereas in the past, you may have, I'm not saying you would, but I'm just saying in the past.
Me?
I would have believed that. Nah.
No, I
No,
know for
I know what
myself.
you're saying.
When I'm working and I'm traveling for work and something, and somebody goes in front of me, and I stop because I say I'm not going to let that ruin my day. If they need to get in front that quickly, now. But how does one's mind get that way? I think it's because we do come and study, and we learn what's really important in life, and you know where to go in front.
No. And then that's what it takes. It takes. Now, also, I will tell you.
So I think our purpose of learning together is so that on that opportunity, when you're running through the store and somebody's like cuts you off, you just say.
Well, in this movie, I found these people, of course, they're overwhelmed, the psychologists. Not one of them mentioned. They asked questions and the kids lied. They didn't tell how they want to kill themselves.
Right.
But nobody mentioned God.
Well, that's
Nobody mentioned God.
You should know, if you have God in the center of your life, then everything is fine. Because you're always looking at it through the prism of God and your relationship with
They
God.
probably wouldn't have been there if they had God.
Well, maybe they might have gotten into that place, right? But at the end, remember, it's a movie, so.
No, it's based on.
Right.
No, it's
That's
still-
right.
But it's still,
Right. Okay.
Maybe it was inappropriate to tell you.
No. But that's not. No, I'm saying, but everything in life, it kind of goes through that. Look at it through that prism.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Okay. So excellent. So that's right. So that's why. Okay. Evil inclination. Give us our free will. Okay. Last line in day number 6. Very important. Let's take a look. Page 5, chapter 1, verse number 31. Right. We did the first part of the verse. We didn't do the second part of the verse.
You know, somebody
Okay.
told me they had a class with you and they finished the Torah in 6 years.
So quick.
you must have been there.
I might say, tell them they missed it. Tell them to come back.
It's not on page 5.
Page 9.
Okay. So
Nine. Sorry, page
Mixed up, Rabbi.
page 9, chapter 1, verse number 31. Mark, you want to read?
Me?
Oh, let Mark. You need to finish.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
And God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 6th day.
The 6th day. Don't turn the page. Okay. Now here, you have to go to the Hebrew a little bit because it says Hashishi.
Hashishi.
Okay? The 6th day.
6, yeah.
Okay, what's the problem? Is that if you take a look in the Hebrew, okay, if you take a look how it ends off day number 5, it says Vayhi Erev Vayivok, it was evening, it was morning, Yom Chamishi, the 5th day. And how does the 4th day end off? Yom Revi, the 4th day. The Hey, which means the, okay, does not need to be there. It's silent. If it would not be written, we would still read it the exact same way. Okay?
Shishi.
Yom Shishi, Vayivok, Yom Shishi. How would we translate that? It was evening, it was morning, the 6th day.
No matter.
Right? No matter what. So why is there an extra hey?
I know.
Okay, why is there an extra hey? But it says ha
Shabbos.
shishi. No, why the 6th? So it's really, it was evening, it was morning, the 6th day.
Where are you?
Right here.
On the bottom page 8.
Right here.
Right here.
See, look.
Right here.
Oh, you're reading the Hebrew.
Right. You hear the question?
Yeah.
Right. It says, right, it was evening, it was morning, the 6th day.
There were two issues.
So, go ahead.
There was the physical that was created and the spiritual. And so there was a separation with physical and spiritual.
Okay.
Why?
No. So it was like this. Says the Talmud. It was evening and it was morning, the 6th day. Why? What keeps the world functioning?
Shabbos.
Hashem. And what keeps God wanting to create the world?
People?
Nope. Well, it depends what they're doing, right? But what do we have to do in order to make the world worth it for God?
Study Torah.
Oh, yes. To study Torah. Okay? As long as this Torah study going on, the world will continue.
Well, what's that got to do with hashish?
Hang in. Okay, we'll get there. Okay? Right? Which means, by the way, I want to tell you something fascinating. If there would be a second in the world when the world was not studying Torah, the world would cease to exist. These 2 hours that we sit and we study Torah, we are keeping the world going. You understand that? You understand the important job that you're doing. You're keeping the world in existence. Okay?
And you're keeping me going too.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why God made time zones, by the way. So always will be people that will be up, that will be able to study Torah. I kid you not. That's why there are time zones.
It's not Benjamin Franklin.
Okay, no. I'm telling you what his time zones.
So he could have made the earth flat.
He could have made the earth flat. He could have made it this light all over and the light shuts off. The light shuts on, light goes on. Right? He could all do, right? God could do whatever he wants, right? And he did not create the world that way. He created the world that there is time zones. Why?
So
Somebody
there's always
somebody up
praying.
and studying Torah.
Torah, yeah.
But there's a problem now.
Yeah.
What's that?
When God created the world, was there a Torah yet?
No.
No. When was the Torah given to the Jewish people?
Sinai.
On Mount Sinai.
With Moses.
Does
The fourth time up.
Okay, well, first time, then it came back a third time down.
Okay. third
Now,
time.
but the first time he gave it to him, I gave him down. Does anyone know what month we got the Torah? The Hebrew month is called the month of Sivan. Right? The third month in the Jewish calendar. Does anyone know on which day in Sivan we got the Torah?
10th day.
No.
22nd?
The 6th day of Sivan. Vayhi Erev, and it was evening. Vayhi Voker, and it was morning. Yom HaShishi, the sixth day. God says, I'm creating the world on condition that the Jewish people accept the Torah. If the Jewish people do not accept the Torah, the world will cease to exist.
Time out.
Let me repeat it again before you time out. God says, I created the world. It was evening and it was morning, the sixth day. The sixth day of Sivan. The world is continuing and only existing in order, on condition, that the Jewish people accept the Torah on Mount Sinai on the sixth day of Sivan.
But they didn't the first time.
No, they did, but they're worshiping the golden calf.
Yes, I'm saying.
No,
they
so
didn't do it, so why did he give us another chance? Another couple?
Because God loves giving second chances and third chances.
Okay.
Right? Okay? And Moshe didn't sin. Right? Okay, but it was...
Emotionally,
And
our case.
actually it's interesting because the 6th of Sivan, when we stood at Mount Sinai, we all accepted the Torah. It was 40 days later, when Moses came down with the tablets, that we were worshiping the golden calf, which was on the 17th of Tammuz. So on the 6th of Sivan, we all accepted the Torah. We were all in, right? We were all in. We said, okay, we're in, right? And that's why, that's where the world was created on condition of the Jewish people accepting the Torah. Okay? Yes.
He created the sixth day, but there was no promise that we're going to get it.
It should was. Go back. Bereishis.
He created the world for everybody.
Correct. So what?
That
So
doesn't mean that
okay.
we are qualified
No.
to take it.
Okay, good. So let me just take you back for a second, okay? There's no Jewish people till Abraham, right? Year 2000, since of the creation of man. Okay, that's when Abraham shows up on the scene. Okay, Abraham shows on the scene, right in 2000. Right, he's born in year 1948 after the creation of man. Right, it takes Abraham 3 years to understand there's a God. It takes him either 48 or 52 years in order to act on his knowledge of God. Right, which brings us to the year 2000 from creation. Right? Remember, now we're in 57, 78. Right? So it's 3,778 years ago. That's when Abraham said, okay, God, I'm in. Let's say the entire world would have done what they were supposed to do. Adam and Eve never sinned. Right? The whole world, right, went pristine exactly, right, as we could imagine it. Would there have been a need for a special Jewish people, or would the entire world have become the Jewish people?
The whole world would have been the Jewish.
The whole world would have been Jewish. Right? The whole world. Because what is the Jews? We are God's special forces, right? God chose us. We are unique. We are special. God created us, chose us to be His chosen people to teach the rest of the world how to serve God. That's why we're here.
Light into the nations.
A light into the nations, right? He created us in order to go ahead, in order to create, right? In order to go ahead and to create, right? In order to bring godliness into this world. But if the whole world would have figured that out, then there wouldn't have been any special need for a special. Everyone would have been that way, right? And it's because they didn't that we had to step up to the plate.
They always tell me, change yourself, don't change the world. So how am I supposed to change the world like this?
Okay, the answer is like this.
Is 1 against 1 million, or 2 million, or 5 million?
So the answer is
Very limited.
so the answer is like this. If you work on changing yourself, you see, when are the Jewish people going to go out and change the entire world? When Mashiach comes, right? When the Messiah comes.
Okay.
What needs to happen before the Messiah can come?
We need to perfect ourselves.
All Jews need to take Breakneck through the Bible. Oh, sorry. We need, right? Right? All
Achieve
Jews,
godliness.
right? All need to achieve godliness, right? All Jews need to go ahead and to be able to be good teachers, right? What do we need to do to become good teachers?
Study Torah.
Study Torah. We got to get educated, right? So right now, right, November 20th, 2017. What's our job?
Get more Jews.
Get the Jews educated, right? Get the Jews learning Torah. Once the Jews become educated, then what? Then at that point in time, then the Messiah can come. So that's our job right now.
How many Jews have to get educated?
That's a great question. And I don't know the answer, but I do know part of the answer is more than that are now. Right? Because
That's
obviously...
a cop-out.
No,
But-
that's a good answer.
Yeah, it's good answer.
A portion of the remnant will be redeemed, and that's it.
No, okay, you know what? That's possible.
That's
I
what
will.
it
I will
says.
tell you one of the things we say in Kaddish, right? We say, right? We ask God, right? We ask God. When I think of the words, we ask God to go ahead and to have a complete redemption. Okay, we ask God that everyone should be brought back. Not just a piece.
Not just Jews?
No, not just a piece.
Okay.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Because, right?
All the Jews alive today.
No. Because, right? Mark's saying, well, we take a look, right? There's, right? It's, right? You take a look around. We're not batting so hot, right? How many Jews have the right to say there are 15 million Jews in the world? Right? How many of them are in a relationship with God? I don't even know there's a God. I don't even believe there's a God. Right? Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Right? The answer is sadly it's not. It's right. It's not enough. Right? So the answer is, but so we ask God to have a complete redemption. Right? That we want everyone to come back. That's what we're asking for.
He's not going to force it.
Well, again, I'm not going to tell God what He's going to do. I'm just going to do my
We
part.
already know the ending of the story.
No, we don't.
Prophets tell us a portion of the remnant.
Yeah. No, okay. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you very important about the prophets. Any prophecy that was given, okay, that's a prophecy for bad. Okay, any prophecy that's a prophecy for bad, okay, is conditional. That the Jewish people don't do tshuva. That the Jewish people don't come back to God. If we do, then any prophecy that's given for bad becomes nullified. It does not have to be an Armageddon, right? It could be everyone wakes up one morning and everyone's just loving each other. Nobody wants to fight anymore. Yeah. Everyone takes their swords and beats them into plowshare, and we go straight into the Messianic era, right? That's exactly the way the world can work, right? Or the world can work that heck, we don't get it, we blow each other up, and a few people left, and they finally get it, and therefore they do that.
It's looking a lot. It's looking a lot like that.
Right, but the answer is who's in charge of what happens and how it happens?
God.
No,
We are.
We are. We choose our own ending.
But you said God's responsible for everything.
Of course He is, but
Except
based on our
God.
actions, based on what we do. Right? God says, "I'm going to do based on what you do." Right, and so then we go ahead, right, and so that then we go ahead. We have. Right, it's based on what we do is how God says He's going to make happen. Right, and therefore, it's our choice. Right, and so we get to choose the ending. Right, we get to choose the ending. That's what it's all about. But it's going ahead and choosing the ending. Right, and that's what life's about. Right, making those right choices. Right, so Vayer Revoka Yom Hashishi. Right. Yom the sixth day. You know which sixth day? The sixth day that the Torah was given. And if the Torah comes around, the 6th of Sivan. And that's the sixth day it's referring to. Because the world's created, sure. But what's the engine, what's the battery to keep the world going? The accepting of the Torah on Mount Sinai.
So the sixth day, the Torah was created, but it wasn't passed on to the Jews?
No. The Torah was created before God created the world.
In a
Black fire on top of white fire.
spiritual...
The spiritual, right? It's a whole spiritual connection.
In the heavens.
In heaven, wherever the heavens are, right? It was created, right? Before 973 generations before God created the world, He created the Torah. Okay? 973 generations before He created the Torah.
What about the human soul?
Right? Before He created the human soul.
Was the Torah first?
The Torah, of course, because that's a blueprint to the world.
Yeah.
Right? That's a blueprint to the world. And now it goes ahead and creates, right, well, in the human soul, it says, comes from God, so it's a little more complicated than that. But the Torah is the blueprint to the world. Okay? The Torah is the world is created only so that we can fulfill an obligation in the Torah. There is nothing in the world that is extraneous to us going ahead and us following the Torah. And that's what the world is there for. It's there for us to do mitzvahs with. And that's how everything is created. In some way, somehow, it's going to help us fulfill a commandment. In some way, somehow, going to help us create a relationship with God. That's how the world is created. That's the purpose of the world, and that's what it's there for.
Do we live in an infinite world? Do we live in an is there not a finish, but infinite, something that has no limit?
The answer is, this is a physical world. Everything physical has a limit. And absolutely, the world has a physical end. There is a time that it will cease to exist. But again, we're not physical.
They now have found the edge of the universe.
Oh yeah? Oh, that's cool. Right? Now, you should know, but we're our soul. We're not our body. And our soul is infinite. Right? So the world might cease to exist, the physicality, but the spirituality will always be there. Right? Our soul will always be there.
So in the heavens, there's billions of souls?
Sure.
There's
You're not billions, not that many people.
Is a heavenly world?
Sure. It's a spiritual world. It's another dimension. Okay, nothing to do with anything physical. Yeah.
I can't grasp a concept. Help me, please. The Torah was written 973 generations before man.
Before God created the world.
Before God created the world. But man has free choice.
Yeah.
So the bunch of people in here has free choice, but God knew what they were going to choose.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
That was my question.
Right, okay, I'll give you an example. I offer my kid chocolate or broccoli.
Chocolate.
He takes broccoli and you wonder why.
Right? Wrong. I'm not sure there's ever been a kid like that. Right? You have chocolate and broccoli. Now, does my kid have free will to choose chocolate or broccoli?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do I know what he's going to choose?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that affect his free will, or he still has the same free will?
He still has the same free
Right, so just because you know what he's going to choose is irrelevant to his free will.
Yeah.
God knows what we're going to choose,
Okay.
but we have our free will.
Okay.
Right, and then it's just making those
You
free
still
will
gotta make the
decisions.
choice.
Right, so if 973 generations, you know why 973 generations? Because you know what generation got the Torah? Moses was the 26th generation, and the Jewish people were the 27th generation. Do you know what 973 plus 27 is? One Scott. 973 plus 20.
Shuts down, like
Okay, 1,000.
It's 1,000.
It's 1,000 generations. And what does it say? 1,000 generations is like one day for God. Right? Right? So that's right, but that's right, that's right. The Torah was created before the world. So Yom HaShishi, right?
973 generations ago, the Torah was written.
Right. It was created, right. Written, black fire on top of white fire.
That's 973 generations before the creation
Of the world.
of the first day.
Correct.
My goodness gracious.
Right? Right, that's right, that's when it was created.
That's awesome.
Now, so Yom HaShishi, the 6th day of Sivan. Another commentator says, no. It's not the 6th day of Sivan. Yom HaShishi. What letter is Ha?
5.
Hey, 5. And what is 5? Why is there a number 5? What does the number 5 stand for?
Torah.
5 books of Moses. So here was even this morning Yom HaShishi. Oh, we have to stop for a moment, pause. Kenny got the answer right. Let's all acknowledge that. Right, Yom HaShishi, right, the day of the 5 books of the Torah. Right? Again, the same thing, right? It's Yom HaShishi, the 6th of Sivan, or the 5 books of Moses. And that's why it ends off, right? The 6th day of creation with Yom HaShishi.
But either interpretation comes out the same.
Right, it's the same idea. It's just exactly how do you get there, right? Does it come to a place? Does it come from the 5 books of Moses, or does it mean the 6th day of Sivan, which is getting the Torah, right? And actually, and I kind of sometimes think Yom HaShishi. So Hey is 5, and Shishi is 6. And what does 6 stand for? 6 are the books of the Mishnah.
Oh.
So it's Ha-Shishi. It's 5 and 6. Right? The Torah with the oral law. And how that all goes together.
Wow.
Right? The combination of the written law and the oral
6
law.
books of the Mishnah.
6 books of the Mishnah.
But
6 orders of the Mishnah.
If it wasn't that, could it just have been Yom Shishi?
Right, it should have been just like it wrote by Yom Chamishi, Yom Revi'i, Yom Shlishi, Yom Sheni. All the other days, there's no hey, and you read it the same way. It means the same thing. That it says that it puts a hey there, it means there's something extra. Right? Right? There's an extra piece that it's coming to tell you.
Extra the.
It's an extra the. Right? The 6th day. Right? What the 6th day, right? What 6 days is it referring to? Referring to the 6th day of the receiving of the 6th day of Sivan, when the Jewish people accepted the Torah.
Wow.
And now the world can exist.
Who figured that out?
The author. Right? Remember that's right, but that's what it is. Right? It's going ahead, it's the creation of the world. That's what it's all about. Right? And it's going ahead, right? It's bringing the world into the purpose of creation.
Just when I think I got it figured out.
So we're turning a page.
We are turning a page. Drum roll, please.
Yeah.
Why are you rushing?
Such a hurry.
Slow down a bit.
Yeah, okay. We gotta slow down. We don't want to do too fast.
End of the day.
Okay. Chapter 2, verse number 1, day number 7.
Most important.
Okay. Okay. Joy, you want to read?
Thus the heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. By the 7th day, God completed his work which he had done, and he abstained on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because on it he abstained from all his work which God created to make.
Okay. So what does God create on day number 7?
Shabbos.
Shabbos. What does Shabbos mean?
Day of rest.
Day of rest. So God goes ahead and he creates a day of rest. Now, so when I ask you, what did he create on Shabbos?
Holiness.
He stopped creating.
He stopped creating. Okay, so if he stopped creating, so did he create anything on Shabbos?
Well, it was complete, right?
He created Shabbos.
He created Shabbos.
And there's so much that comes from that.
Oh, okay. Good. So now, let's look at it like this. The question I'm asking you, is rest a creation or is rest a cessation of creating?
Cessation.
I mean, let me ask you a question another way.
Okay.
How many days did God create the world?
7.
6.
6.
Don't let them browbeat you. How many days do you say it was?
7.
7. Okay, who thinks the world was created in 7 days? Raise your hand. A little higher. Could be a little more. Own it. Okay.
Oh, I own it.
Okay. Who thinks it's 6 days?
Everybody.
Okay, no. 2 people haven't voted yet.
I'm sure.
Two upstairs.
2 abstain. I won't
It
put.
says
I won't.
he created, so it's hard to say that he said the 7th day.
But the 7th day God completed his work. I rest my case.
Well, some people will say, in 1 day, God created
God created what in 1 day?
the world in 1 day.
Oh, the whole thing, the 7th day is the creation of everything?
No,
Created the world. in
World.
one day.
He created the world in 1 day,
Yeah,
and the rest of the days He just put things in their place.
yeah, move them around a little.
Move them around. But when did He? Because remember, creating means something out of nothing.
Yes,
So, in how many days did God create the world?
less than nothing.
Right. So there were 3 right answers to this question.
Okay.
Well, you could always be wrong because you could always tell whatever they say. You could always take the other argument. It's either 1 day, 6 days, or 7 days. Okay. The 1 day argument is that the only day that God created something was on day that was the first day of creation.
Yeah.
Right. That's when He created it. Right. Okay. Then the rest of it, right? That's when He created something out of nothing, and the rest of the 6 days He was busy putting things into its place. Okay. The other argument, no, the 6 days resting, right, is a cessation of creation, and therefore He stops.
You stop creating.
And the other answer is no. Rest itself is a creation. Okay? And therefore, right, He created 7 days. What did He create on Shabbat? Created rest. Right, the question whether rest is its own creation or whether it's part of just stopping of creation. Okay? Right? So there are so that's either 1 day, 6 days, or 7 days, right? That's how the world is created, but either 1, 6, or 7. Okay? And that's a discussion of how many days the world was created. Okay? Right?
All of them are right answers.
They're all right. They're all
Good for
right.
you, boy. You're right.
Right. They're all right. Right? It's either 1, 6, or 7. Right? That's right. That's the correct answer. Now, why did He create Shabbos? Does God need to rest?
No.
Oh,
So why did He create Shabbos?
for us.
Man needs to rest.
To get
Man needs to
close
rest.
to God.
Covenant between.
A covenant between us and God.
Right.
Right? So why is there? So what is Shabbos? What is the source of Shabbat?
God.
What do you mean the
is
source?
Shabbos, right, is a day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning what? Meaning how do we, if we want to celebrate Shabbat, how do we go about celebrating Shabbat?
You study.
Prayer.
Learn Torah.
Follow mitzvahs.
Daven.
I think eating a nice Shabbos meal. I know what you guys are.
Tonight is the
We
first,
did that,
first
that.
year.
Oh, Cher, when you always have a doubt, what do you do?
Have a barbecue.
What does my rabbi do? Well, you have to barbecue before Shabbat, right? What does my rabbi do? What if my rabbi does? That's the right answer.
Right.
Right. Okay. Right. Right.
The first thing you do, you light the candle. That's the first thing you do.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
ritual.
You actually.
We do
Well,
ritual.
it's actually interesting
What?
because you light the candles actually before Shabbat starts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's the beginning of it.
Okay. And yes, right. But what are we encapsulating? This is very important. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Created?
And so what don't we do?
Don't
Work.
We don't work.
We don't go to work. Okay, that is not really correct. It's a good try.
Because
Your
it's
wife
here.
works hard.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, my wife works hard. I have to walk to shul in 110-degree weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I working hard?
Yep.
Yep.
Sure am. Much you turn that car on and go in the air conditioner to get to shul, right? So why am I walking to shul if I'm supposed to be resting, right, and not working? So why am I walking to shul?
Because there's a price we pay.
Yeah, we want to make sure we got it. We're tough. We're taking it on the chin. Yeah, we're Jews. We're masochists. You know, like turn the knife, Rabbi.
No, schwer zu sein Yid.
What
You
did
should
he
know.
say?
It said
When you
Yiddish
speak
expression.
Yiddish?
It means it's tough to be a Jew. That expression I totally disagree with. Totally, not only disagree with. They asked, it's schwer zu sein Yid.
Yeah,
It's
I
tough to be
understand
right.
Yiddish.
Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, right, this great rabbi I quoted before,
Yeah.
he said the worst line ever to be created was that line. Schwer zu sein Yid. It's tough to be a Jew. It's a blessing to be a Jew.
Yeah.
Right, and he says he's
No, I was talking about
right. I'm just it's a very common line that
Yes.
is said, but he said something fascinating. He says if we walk around with the mentality that if I'm a Jew I have to suffer, right? I think a Jew would think of suffering. He says so. Of course, who's going to want to be Jewish, right? Who's going to want to do it, right? The idea is not, right? Judaism is the most incredible thing, right? So why is walking to shul in 110-degree weather, that by the time you get to shul, you're swimming in your own sweat, right? And that's called resting, right? And why is turning on the car and driving nice air conditioning comfort called working? Now, what's wrong with this picture, right? And the answer is like this. Okay, it's very important. What did God do in the first 6 days that He stopped doing on day number 7? He stopped creating. What's the definition of creating?
Making something out of
I
nothing.
mean, something that is nothing. But in this purpose for Shabbos, the creation that we're talking about is changing the status of something.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, like for example, walking over to a pretty flower and just plucking it out of the ground. You changed it from a growing thing to a non-growing thing.
You're not supposed to do
Right? That is what we call the creation that we stop doing on Shabbos is changing the status. If you want to go ahead and you want to carry your 50-pound couch around your house all day on Shabbos, go knock yourself out and have a great time. And no, I'm not coming to help you. Okay, right? Because that's not creation. That's just work. Okay? What is creating? Creating is changing the status of something.
That's why you can't write.
That's why you can't write. Right? And so there are actually, you should know, there are 39 categories of creation that we don't do on Shabbat. Okay? Those 39 categories of creation, everything stems from those 39, okay? Those 39 is the categories, and underneath each of those categories it breaks down and, yada yada you get all the different things that we can or cannot do. How do we know what those 39 categories are? That's very simple. In the Torah, okay, it says God's give the commandment to build the tabernacle. It's later on, okay, in the end of Exodus. But God says, make sure, do not build the tabernacle on Shabbat. Because you got to keep the Shabbat. So we know that anything that was done in the construction of the tabernacle cannot be done on Shabbos.
Are there things you cannot do on Shabbos that was not done to create the tabernacle?
And the answer is like this. On the 39 categories, they're what are called, right, the sort of the main branches,
And then subsets.
and then there's subsets, right? So some of those subsets follow along the same idea that was done in Shabbat, on the tabernacle, but may not be actually what was done.
You use ice on Shabbos, but you're changing the status of it.
That's that's an incredible question. So the question is, changing water to ice or ice to water. So let's say melting ice. If you have an ice cube and it melts, Okay, and it melts. Okay, so the water has changed from status from ice into water. So that is considered muksa. That's considered creating. That's considered as changed its status.
Right.
So if you will notice, in my house, what I do is if I take an ice cube out of the fridge, I put it straight into water. That way, as the ice cube melts, the little teeny bit it melts each second, whatever it is, it gets lost into the water that is there, and therefore it's not separate, and therefore you're allowed to use it.
But it's not melting by
Because
itself.
because it's not melting into it by itself.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one thing that's a problem, right? Unless you know about this.
Coffee.
Some people, what some people like to do is they like to take crushed ice and to stick it into everybody's cup,
Oh.
right? When you go, right, then everyone has a cup of ice at the table,
Yeah.
and they don't put any water into the bottom of that cup.
It's not good.
So now all the liquid that's in the cup, where did that liquid come from?
From the
Ice.
tree.
The ice, and that liquid is muksa. It's been created and has no use, right? And it has changed the creation, and then that would be a problem.
So the same thing with making tea with the tea bag. Don't you have to do something? I always get mixed up with this on Shabbat.
No. So that becomes an issue right? But I mean, how do you do it properly? How these 39 categories fall, and the practical applications for is a long time. It's a lifetime's worth of study. Okay, just of what you can do, what you can't do, how to do it, what's the right way to do it, what's the wrong way to do it. But the general theme is creativity. Creating something on Shabbat, we don't create. Right? You want to work, you want to schlep your couch around the house,
It's allowed.
go right ahead.
So you can do that. It's
Is that
allowed.
what right. I once had, it's amazing, I had a student, he lived like a mile and a half from Shul. And he said, Rabbi, I stopped driving to Shul on Shabbat. I said, wow, that's amazing. He'd be walking in 110 degree weather and he'd walk to Shul. So he said, could I eat in his house? So I said, I would love to eat in your house. I said, now you're Shomer Shabbat. I said I could eat in your home. But in order to eat in somebody's home, right, the home has to be kosher and they have to be Shomer Shabbat. Those are the two pieces that is needed. Okay? Right? You have to have a kosher home, you have to follow the kosher rules, right? And you gotta keep Shabbat. Right? Now. So he said to me, he said, well, Rabbi, I gotta tell you something. I said, what? He says, I'm walking to Shul. I said, but I'm still turning the lights on and off in my house. And I said, what? I said, you're walking a mile and a half each way, uphill, both ways, on Shabbat in 110 degree weather. I said, and then you're going home and you turn it on a stupid switch?
That's crazy.
I said, okay. I said, I get it. And I said, well, then in that case, I can't eat in your house, but keep it up, you're doing a great job. 3 weeks later, he comes back, he says, okay, Rabbi, sign me up. You can eat in my house now. He said, I stopped turning the switches on and off. I said, phew. I said,
You still have to have Rabbi Klein come over.
I said that you're able to go ahead and you're able to. I said that's amazing. Yeah, I said, but not to keep Shabbat because you don't want to leave the bathroom light on all night in your house. I said, I just don't get it. I understood not walking to Shul in 110 degree weather. He had me there. You know what I'm saying? Like I was with him. I got that. But to turn the light switch on and off, because what happens when you turn the light switch on and off? You're creating
A circuit.
But again, so it's very fascinating actually what the issue is, and it's very fascinating when it comes to Jewish law, right? I'll tell you just a practical thing. So normally, right, when we were growing up, how were our light bulbs done? They're incandescent, right?
Right.
Which means that the filament caught on fire,
Right.
right?
No.
It didn't catch a fire, right? It glowed.
Yes.
It glowed, right? He heated up the filament, it turned red, it glowed. That is the purely technical definition of fire on Shabbat.
Okay.
Okay? Now, what about fluorescent light bulbs? Fluorescent light bulbs don't work that way.
You excite molecules.
Oh, so very interesting. So there was a big rabbi in Lakewood who came to my father. My father's a PhD electrical engineer. And said, can you find out how fluorescent light bulbs work? So my father said, not a problem. My cousin, also PhD electrical engineer, it's a disease in my family. He happens to work for Philips Labs. And so he said, he called up my cousin, and he says, how do fluorescent light bulbs work? He says, well, when you turn the switch on, he said, there's a thin piece of metal that glows red. And then the molecules spin off that, excite the gas, and that's how the light comes. So again, that would be a Torah prohibition or a rabbinic prohibition.
Oh, rabbinic.
No,
It's a Torah
because
prohibition.
the metal glows red.
I see.
So that's a Torah prohibition.
Yeah.
Now, onward ho. So now, like on the what's it called? The LED, the letters on the thermostat.
LED,
LEDs. LEDs don't work that way. LEDs, there is no glowing red in LEDs. And therefore, LEDs would be rabbinically prohibited, but not a Torah prohibition.
So an LED TV you could watch.
Not a question of watching. Whether you can turn right now, we're talking about turning it on, turning it off. Okay, let's leave watching aside. Okay, turning it on, turning it off, right? So turning it on, turning it off on an LED is not the same level as turning the light bulb on. Okay, right?
An LED light.
Oh, so now they're making LED lights, right? Which is interesting. So you have to see how they're made, right? But assuming they're made the same way, that would be rabbinically prohibited, not a Torah prohibition. And what's the difference whether it's rabbinically or a Torah prohibition? So one classic example would be, let's say somebody who's sick. And when it comes to people who are somebody, pretty sick. Not deathly sick, because deathly sick you could transgress any commandment, except the big three. Mm-hmm. Right? But they're sick. So when it comes to Shabbat, when the rabbis made the decrees, when it comes to sick people, right, they said, we're not going to make the decrees. Right? So therefore, classic example, when in the last 4 pregnancies that my wife had, she got progressively worse in her morning sickness. And at one point in time, she went on a Zofran pump.
What's that?
It means Zofran is an anti-nausea medication. It actually was developed for cancer, and there were like 3 anti-nausea medications. And one of them was okay to pregnant ladies to use them. That's the Zofran. And if you ever want to know about it, I have some really war stories. My wife was busy throwing up. I had to go to the pharmacy to get it. And normally they only okayed it 6 days every 23 days. And I cycled the chemotherapy. Right? And that was what they were using for. It was a black box that could also be done for pregnant women. Pregnant women don't need it 6 out of 23 days. They need 24 out of 23 days. Right? So what happens? I go to the pharmacy. It's like midnight. My wife is busy, throwing up, and I said, I need a Zofran pill. So they go, how many do you want? I said, well, no, give me 30. So she goes, okay, the insurance is going to cover it, right? So I said, okay, well, how much is it? She goes,
$8,000.
Yeah.
How much is it?
$4,500. So $150 a pill. $150 a pill. So.
After they picked you up off the
Yeah, they picked me up off the floor. My wife is thrown up. She says, "Okay, why don't you do this? Why don't you take 1 pill? She said, come back tomorrow morning. We'll call your medical company." I said, "But she's throwing up now." I said, "If I buy 1 pill now." If I buy one, and these are little tiny pills. I said, if I buy 1 pill now, I said, and then I get okay, will you like give it back to me? They said, yeah. So I said, okay, good. So I said, okay, thank you. I bought 1 pill, paid $150. Took it home, gave it to my wife. The next morning, we back there, 8:00 in the morning, saying, okay, let's call, right? And they were fine, and they okayed it. Remember that's so anyway. So that was maybe like the second bed. By the fourth one, she was in bed for like 3 months with a pump. And so the pump had LED, like the dose was LED lights, right? Which means that if she needed to change the dosage on Shabbat, she could, because it was only rabbinically prohibited, not a Torah prohibited. Okay, that would be so. It's learning, it's understanding the technical.
But wouldn't the illness supersede the rabbinic prohibition?
No. So the illness, it's not life and death. It's disgusting.
No, that's not factual. If she keeps throwing up, she gets dehydrated.
Right. No. It's very good, right? And that would be so. Certainly, if she would get, and that's why eventually they just went to pumps, and they finally got it. They made the knockoff of it, and then it's like 20 cents a pill. But that's right, and that's what they did, and that's why they started okaying all these.
We can use a sleep apnea machine because
right. So sleep apnea, same thing, right? But then sleep apnea is a life and death thing, right, on Shabbat, right? Not choosing it right. It ruins the heart, right? So therefore, that becomes even if the Torah prohibition doesn't make a difference, you can do it, right? Because it's that. But this is all you're getting into the technical detail. My point is as follows. God ceased to create on Shabbat. Okay? What God did was He ceased from creating. And so what we do on Shabbat is we cease to create. Right? Because when we create, what in essence are we saying when we create? We're saying we are God. We are the creator of the universe. Right? God, you don't have to create, but I create.
Well, if you define creation as making something out of nothing, we can't create a darn
thing, right? But again, changing the status, right?
Is this why we don't fold our talis till after Shabbat?
So folding a talis on the lines.
Yeah, right.
On the lines comes from underneath the prohibition of washing, right, and ironing, right? To go ahead and when you wash it, that's why we don't put it on the lines, right? Because then that comes as a subsection.
How do you fold it then?
I always fold it off lines, right? So
I just make a ball out of it and stick it in my bag.
And you can do that. I just do it as that. Instead of folding it exactly on the lines, I fold it off 2 inches, so it's not being folded.
I see.
Fold on the lines, I just then roll it up. And that's
I never knew that. Is this just on Shabbos?
Yeah, just in Shabbat, right? Because in Shabbat, because that would fall underneath the prohibition of washing, right?
How do you make that step?
How because again, right? So there's a whole tract they call Tractate Shabbat.
Okay.
Okay, but they go through all the rules you should know. There's a great set of books called which I hold is phenomenal. It's called the Lamed Tes Malachos. It used to be over there. It's a 4-volume set of gray books called the 39 attributes of 39 creative activities on Shabbat.
Is it in English?
It's in English, yeah. It's in English, and what it does is it takes. Let me see if it's over here. It goes ahead and it takes.
Is it the one in the second shelf?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, so I'll show you what it is. It goes ahead. Here. Right, there's 4 volumes. We have 2 sets here. Right, but it looks like this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right, so, and what it does is, each of the 39 attributes, it starts off, what is the Torah prohibition? Then what are all the next pieces down, and it kind of, and it sets out just a perfect, it sets out really just a very nice way. Showed you how it was used in the tabernacle, how does it fall on till today, and then all the different pieces that come from it. It's very fascinating work.
So you can check it out like every
like any other things, and it's really an excellent book to begin to understand, and the introduction is also very good because, right, it just kind of explaining what the technical details of Shabbat are.
And what is it? What's the name of it?
It's called the Lamed Tes Malachos, the 39 Malachos, right? The 39 creative actions, right? That are forbidden on Shabbat.
Lamed Tes
Malachos. Right, Malachos, right? Because those are the 39 right creative actions that are done.
Why there is existing 2 rabbinical prohibition and Torah prohibition should be the one which everything should be based on, and rabbi is simply going to interpret what prohibition from Torah is.
No. So it's interesting. The rabbi prohibition is not that they're interpreting a prohibition.
Yeah.
They're saying there are a few different types of rabbinic laws. One is where they say we're going to add a fence around it because if you let you walk too near it, you're going to blow it up. Right? When it's a landmine, we don't just mark the landmine. We take 3 feet around the landmine and say, don't go any in that circle. Why? Because you don't want to blow yourself up. Right? That's what takes place. Right? That's the idea of. So the rabbis come along and say, listen, if we're going to let you do this, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So let's do this to stay away. Then
so
there's
rabbinic prohibitions are always stricter than a Torah prohibition.
Generally, they're adding on a layer of.
Generally or always?
Always. I mean, they can't uproot a Torah commandment.
They can't be more lenient.
Right, they can't.
So they have to be stricter.
Right. And then sometimes you have things that there's a challenge in a way. So they'll come and make along a takana, they'll make a decree. They're saying here's the thing that kind of is broken, and we're now going to create a law to make sure that it goes ahead and it fixes it. And so that's sort of how the rabbis are here is to help make our job of serving God better. Now, ultimately, even the rabbinic prohibitions are alluded to in the Torah. Okay? And even the rabbinic prohibitions are alluded to in the Torah. How do we know that? Because it's interesting, when God comes to Isaac and says, Isaac, I'm going to give you all these things. He says, why am I going to give you all these things? So I'm going to give you all these things because Abraham kept my commandments, my decrees, my voices, and my Torahs. Mm-hmm. Right? And when it says, and what that literally translates into, you kept my commandments, right? You kept my tests. You kept the commandments. You kept my rabbinic decrees, right? And you kept my Torah as oral and written law. Right? So you see that Abraham kept the rabbinic commandments. So you see, because the rabbinic commandments are also included. And sort of where God let the rabbis, in order for us to be part and parcel of the creation of the Torah, that we could go ahead and we could create the rabbinic laws. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any question? Okay. Right. So that's this idea of the 13. Right. And so this really boils down because it's fascinating, and you really see this. It says where in the Torah does it say what you can't do on Shabbat?
No.
I can show you. Actually, there's one place. You know what it says? You may not have a fire burning in your house the entire Shabbat.
You may not have it burning or start burning.
That's very interesting. The literal translation is you may not have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat.
Shabbos candles.
Lo sva'aru eish b'chol moshvosechem b'yom haShabbat.
Well, what about that
Shabbos
cholent,
candles?
that cholent that's boiling?
So listen to this. So along come the rabbis. And the rabbi says that's not what the verse means. Okay? Right? The oral law. Right? They come along and say it doesn't mean you can't, right? You can't have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat. He said what the verse really means is you can't light a fire on Shabbat. But if the fire is already burning from before Shabbat, you're okay. That's what the rabbis come along.
Black is all right.
Right? So that's what, okay, so very interesting. So many years ago, there was a sect of Jews called the Tzedukim, the Sadducees. The Sadducees were a bunch of Jews that they only believed in the written Torah and not the oral Torah.
Isn't it the Karaites?
The Karaites, right. Karaite Sadducees. And what happened was they used to do, they said, you can't have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat. So they used to go ahead and come Shabbat, right? They would light the Shabbat candles, blow them out, sit in the dark. Right? No hot food. So we, Jews, to show that we are not like the Sadducees, right? Not like the Karaites, what we do is we specifically make sure to eat a hot food on Shabbos morning. Because the only way to have a hot food on Shabbos morning is have a fire that's been left on. So to show that we are not like the Sadducees, not like the Karaites, we go ahead and we make sure to eat a hot food on Shabbat.
What's the difference between the Sadducees and the Karaites?
I'm not sure.
What
Is
do
it the
those
same
two
thing?
words mean?
Sadducees, they were a sect of Jews.
Oh,
But the
Okay.
Sadducees were at the time of the temple, before the destruction of the third temple, the Sadducees were the ones who were the
Second temple.
second temple.
so they were who?
The Sadducees were the people who ran the temple. They were.
No, again, right? They were changing Judaism, and so they are the Sadducees, right? Okay, that's who the Sadducees are. Now, what's interesting, right? That's where the Sadducees come from.
Okay.
Okay, so why does the Torah, of all things, pick the one thing it says in the Torah you can't do? You can't have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat. Right? Why does the Torah use that expression? Of all the things that it could use that expression.
It's simple to understand for people there. It's a very basic thing.
It represents
Well-
the beginning of creation.
Ooh,
too.
very good. Very good. Fire represents change. What does fire do? What does heat do?
Destroys.
It changes. It
It
destroys,
It
builds.
goes from
It's
cold to
change.
hot,
It
yeah.
changes. It. So that's why the Torah picks of all the things it could pick. It picks the idea of fire, right? Because fire is an agent of change, and the Torah says you can't cause change on Shabbat, right? You can't. Right? You can't do creation, and that's why it uses that. And it's written in such a way, fascinating. It's written in such a way to show you that you need the rabbis. Because if you don't have the rabbis, you're going to read it. You can't have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat, which is what literally it says. So people say to me, Rabbi, you know, I'm going to follow the Torah. I'm just not going to follow those rabbinic rules. Right? You know what I tell them? I say, great. It says you can't have a fire burning in your house on Shabbat. Good luck in the winter. Right? That's no problem. Okay, right? Okay, so, okay, see how that works for you. Right? So it's kind of just very funny, right? The one thing, right? The one thing that they're telling you is that you can't have a fire burning. Why do rabbis always make it more difficult? So I tell them here it doesn't, to make it the tongues is easier.
There are Karaites today. Are there Sadducees today?
I'm not sure there really are Karaites today. There's a website. I'm not sure how many real Karaites there are.
Okay.
Right? I mean, to me, the Karaites is something that I truly don't understand. Really, from a logical standpoint.
Did you ever ask your rabbi?
What do I do? He has it even worse than I do. This question is that it makes absolutely no sense to say you can understand the Torah without the oral law.
Well, they said there was no oral law.
Right. And so I said to them, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world, because there is no commandment that you can understand without the oral law. So then it's a book of gibberish. Right? If everyone can self-define what the Torah means, right? The Torah it becomes a meaningless document. There has to be. It's impossible for there not to be. That's why I don't even understand it. Right? Do you understand? My question is so big and so basic. I just don't get it. Right? There's no logic behind that. Right? And that's what I said. I said the whole thing is silly.
As I understand the Karaite movement, Nehemiah Gordon is a character who's leading it, and says that everything that modern Jews do today is wrong because they follow the oral law.
Right. And I say, so tell me anything the Torah says. Right? There's no way to understand the Torah without some.
How would he then justify the fact that in the Torah it says what Rabbi said earlier talked about the Torahs.
Mm-hmm. Right. It says because Abraham kept the Torah. Chapter 26, verse number 5. And God said, "I'm going to give to Isaac because Abraham kept the Torahs in plural."
Torah,
Right. What two Torahs are there? Right.
So he can't justify that.
There's lots of there's so many things. You low search don't murder. What do you mean don't murder? Don't murder, don't kill. How are you going to explain it to me? And why should I believe your interpretation, not his interpretation? How do I know your interpretation is right? Well, that's what Moses said. That's oral law. So like the whole. I don't even know how to read it. I don't even know how to write it, because if you look in the Torah has no vowels, and it has no punctuation. So how do you even put together a sentence? How do you even read it? You follow, right? And I'll give you something fascinating. You know chalev. You know what chalev is?
No.
Chalev is forbidden fats.
Forbidden
Fats. An animal, okay? There's something called shuman, which is fat, but fats that you're allowed to eat. And then there's chalev, which is forbidden fats that you cannot eat.
From a forbidden animal or parts of a
No, parts of a kosher
Okay.
animal. Right? And forbidden animal, you can't eat anything.
Right.
Right? So it's the same, right? But there's chalev and there's shuman, right? And so, right, there's permissible, right? Shuman is permissible fats, and there's chalev, there's fats that you're not allowed to eat. Chalav, milk. You allowed to drink milk?
Yes.
Well, it depends which animal it comes from, right? Okay, right? Kosher animal, it's okay. Non-kosher, not allowed to. Do you know how you spell chalav, milk?
Same as chalev.
Same as chalev, same exact letters. This is how do you know whether the Torah is talking about chalev or chalav?
You don't.
And there's a verse that actually where the words are very interchangeable, right? Okay, so there becomes 1,000,001 questions, and that's the drop in the bucket.
But when they
Okay, thank you.
And so it becomes very, very, from an intellectual point, it's rough. It's like ridiculous to me.
when the trope is applied, it helps.
Very good.
Because even last week in Toldot, or just this past week, where Isaac goes to Jacob, and he says, "It is I,
Jacob,
your son Esau."
Right.
But it could potentially have two interpretations.
Right.
But the trope makes it clear that when he says "it is I," he means "I am."
Right.
And
then Esau is the
and
first
Esau
one.
is the firstborn.
Right. And it says, right. So again, so the cantillations is part of the oral law. Right. So they have no way to read it. There's no sentence structure, and so what are they? The whole thing is ridiculous. Right. The following, right. The whole thing is just crazy.
Torah without the oral Torah cannot be a Torah.
That's what I'm saying. The Torah without
it can be
it becomes so meaningless and so hard to.
not only meaningless. The world would go into chaos because you can use it in a negative way.
Yeah, sure,
Not the
absolutely,
moral way.
Absolutely. Right? If you people can
The
self-interpret.
creation changes, basically.
Yeah, sure. The whole thing is just
No.
it's just silly.
So God created the 6th day. We get to the 7th day.
Right.
What separates us from the non-Jews is actually a Shabbat.
Right.
It's the
Because
most holiest-
we were given Shabbat as a covenant between us and God. Okay, it's a covenant between us and God. A covenant is something that is mutually exclusive.
Is there a Jew without a Shabbat? Or is there a Shabbat without a Jew?
So it's a covenant, right? Meaning Judaism, you have Shabbat. You don't have Shabbat, you're toast, right? And you don't have Judaism. Right? A Jew is a Jew is a Jew, right? You're born a Jew. You could eat pig on Yom Kippur on Shabbat. You're still a Jew.
If there was no Shabbat, was
A Jew.
If there was no Shabbat,
It's not Jewish.
If there was no Shabbat, was there going to be existence without Shabbat? Could the world be
Created with
continued without having Shabbat?
Well, that's part of the 7 days of the world. And okay, there's a lot more to talk about this. Next week we'll pick up on this. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you all same bat time, same bat station.
Tomorrow at the
We're
same
having
time.
class tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Wednesday.